sharing a short presentation with you all today on the best practices for workplace communication. Now, I've been reading some articles and books on ways to enhance communication. So what I've done is I've pulled out 5 key strategies that I feel like we can learn about and maybe apply in our own communication as a team. So let's get started. One of the key strategies that continue to come up in my readings, specifically an article called The Driving Employee Engagement, The Expanded Role of Internal Communications, was this concept of engaging each other through face-to-face communication. And it really spoke about how when we are able to stand in front of somebody and share with them our thoughts or our conversation, it invites them to share their thoughts back and their feedback. So you're creating kind of an instantaneous feedback loop. So people are engaging in reciprocal communication. It also allows you to recognize nonverbal cues and body language, which will help mitigate maybe misunderstandings or assumptions that can be made when you are engaging more in information that you're pushing out versus being able to see how it is responding with somebody else and shift your communication based on what you see. And so when we are engaging and can see somebody, we can see if maybe that what we're saying is confusing, or they might want to ask a clarifying question, or even if what we're saying they're not really receiving well, we can pivot or do a follow-up question. And you don't get that with information that you just push towards somebody in a digital capacity. So this face-to-face communication, I believe, is a key element to creating more effective communication as a team. Now, this concept, understanding who you're communicating with and knowing your audience, comes from an article by David Conrad, Workplace Communication Problems, and he talks about how when you know your audience, you can craft your communication to be more persuasive. And I really view that as when you know who you're speaking with, when you know what they value, when you know maybe what their opinions are or what their roles even in the organization are, you can create communication that's more meaningful to them, that they see as more valuable. So maybe the same information that you would share with an executive, you might have a different way of sharing it with maybe a peer or even a direct report based on kind of who they are in the organization, even your relationship with them. And so it is really important, if you want people to receive your communication more effectively, to know who they are and what they value. In the same way, there's a principle that Stephen Covey talks about in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that's this concept of seek first to understand, then to be understood. And this is the idea that, similar to knowing your audience, but really when you are approaching somebody, it's not about you and your point of view and what you want to communicate, but really getting to know them first, know what they value, and then from that point, using that as a platform to be able to communicate your viewpoint. Because when we are able to understand other people, we can shift our communication in, again, a way that's more meaningful or might resonate with them better. The other point is investing time in communication. And this is so hard to do in our really busy world, busy lives. We're so highly productive that it can be really challenging to, schedule time and make time just to have that one-on-one or face-to-face conversation. Now, a study I read, which I thought was really interesting, there was a survey conducted by 500 human resource professionals who, in all of their respective organizations, sent out these surveys. And out of all those surveys, only 40% of their employees felt that their managers spent sufficient enough time with them in one-on-one communication. And why I have this up here as one of our key elements is because it really speaks to one of the other pieces, which is recognizing the importance of communication. So out of all of those surveys, you have less than half of the employees that feel like they're engaging in one-on-one conversation enough. And so David Conrad, in his article that I spoke about earlier, also talks about how important communication is to an organization and its employee engagement and function. So he clearly states that poorly designed communication can result in decreased productivity. So when you have bad communication or no communication in an organization, people don't want to work. You have people showing up to work less often and just not as engaged. Whereas on the other hand, effective communication can create a more engaged workplace. So when you have a workplace where people are, what we said before, people are engaging you face to face, they're seeking to understand, they're allowing you to be involved in the conversation and share your point of view, they're investing time in that communication. That's a workplace that is warm, that's comfortable, that people want to be engaged in. And that's why communication, although it is necessary being in an organization, how we do it is just as important as doing it in the first place. Because if we don't do it well, oftentimes we're not getting the results from our teams that we want. So the other kind of final point here is this concept of listening to learn. And now this was from an article on 3 keys to building trust between managers and employees. And to me, this really kind of sums up all the points around when we are actively listening as a communication technique and tool, then all we're doing at that point is building trust and credibility with our teams, because they recognize that we want to hear their thoughts, we want to hear their opinions, and that those are valuable to us. So listening to learn from our staff, our employees, and our team members is a really effective communication tool that we can use as leaders and team members. So that's all I have for you today. So I hope you found this to be valuable, maybe at least one of the things resonated with you, and we can work together. Thank you so much for your time and listening to me.